The Galactic Council had existed for 12,000 years. In that time, they had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched stars die and new ones be born. They had created laws that governed 100,000 worlds and kept peace among species that had once tried to destroy each other. The Council was old and wise, and they believed they understood how civilization worked. One of their oldest laws was the law of surrender. It was simple and clear. When a species was defeated in war, they would signal their surrender. They would lower their weapons. They would broadcast on all frequencies the words of submission. And then, according to the law, the winning side would stop fighting. The defeated would become subjects of the victors. Their worlds would be taken. Their resources would be claimed, but their lives would be spared. This law had prevented the complete destruction of countless species. It was considered the most important rule in galactic civilization. Everyone followed it. Everyone understood it. A surrender meant the end of fighting. It was sacred. Then humanity entered the galactic stage. The first contact between humans and the greater galaxy happened when a human exploration ship called the Wandering Star encountered a Vraxian trade vessel near the edge of human space. The meeting was peaceful. The humans were curious and friendly. The Vraxians were surprised to find a new species that had developed faster-than-light travel on their own. They reported their discovery to the Council. The Council sent observers. They studied humanity for 3 standard years. They noted that humans were a young species, barely 300 years into space travel. They saw that humans had only colonized 47 worlds. They observed that human technology was primitive compared to most Council species, and they concluded that humans were not a threat. This was their first mistake. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance and watched the Korath fleet emerge from hyperspace. There were 200 ships. The Korath were one of the older species in the galaxy, and they had decided that human space was now their space. They had sent no warning. They had made no demands. They had simply arrived with their fleet and begun attacking human colonies. 3 human worlds had already fallen. The Korath had killed millions. "Admiral," said Commander Jackson, her voice tight with anger, "we have confirmation. New Shanghai, Paradise, and Hope's Landing, all gone." Chen Wei felt something cold settle in his chest. New Shanghai had been home to 50 million people. His sister had lived there. His nephews, gone. "How many ships do we have?" he asked. 42, Admiral, and the Korath are asking for our surrender." The communication screen flickered to life. A Korath commander appeared. The Korath looked like tall insects with hard shells and multiple arms. This one wore the marks of a fleet commander. "Human vessels," the Korath said. "You are outnumbered 5 to 1. Your colonies have fallen, your people have died. According to the law of surrender, you may now submit. Lower your weapons. Broadcast your surrender. Your remaining worlds will become Korath territory, but your species will survive. This is the way of civilized beings." Chen Wei stared at the screen. He thought about his sister. He thought about his nephews, who had been 7 and 9 years old. He thought about 50 million people who had done nothing wrong except live on a world that the Korath wanted. "Commander Jackson," he said quietly, "what is the status of our weapons?" "All ships report weapons hot and ready, Admiral." "Good." Chen Wei looked at the Korath commander. "I have received your offer of surrender. I have a counteroffer. You can turn your ships around and leave human space. You can pay reparations for the people you have killed, or you can die here today." The Korath commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "You cannot win this battle. The mathematics are clear. You have 42 ships. We have 200. Surrender is your only logical option." "Let me tell you something about humans," Chen Wei said. "We don't surrender, we don't give up. You can kill us, but you can't make us quit. And another thing, the mathematics you are using are wrong." "Explain." "You think this battle is about who has more ships. It's not. It's about who is willing to pay a higher price. You came here to take our worlds. We are here to defend our homes. You will fight until fighting becomes too expensive. We will fight until we are dead. That is a fight you cannot win." The Korath commander was silent for a moment. "This is foolish. The law of surrender exists to prevent unnecessary death. You cannot change the outcome of this battle. You can only change how many of your people die." "Then we choose to die fighting." Chen Wei cut the communication link. He turned to his crew. "All ships attack formation. Target their command vessels first. Make them pay for every inch of space." The Battle of Epsilon 7 lasted 16 hours. The human fleet was destroyed. Admiral Chen Wei died on the bridge of the Defiance when a Korath missile tore through the hull. But when the battle ended, the Korath had lost 93 ships, almost half their fleet. More importantly, they had lost their fleet commander, and their second commander, and their third. The humans had specifically targeted the command ships, attacking them with suicidal determination. Ships that should have retreated instead accelerated into the enemy, their crews choosing to ram the Korath vessels rather than pull back. The surviving Korath were confused. This was not how war was supposed to work. When you were losing, you surrendered. You didn't throw your ships at the enemy like missiles. You didn't sacrifice yourself to take your killers with you. This was madness. But the humans were just getting started. News of the Battle of Epsilon 7 spread through human space. The story of Admiral Chen Wei became legend. People repeated his words. "We don't surrender. We don't give up." Recruitment offices were overwhelmed with volunteers. Factories that had been making civilian goods switched to military production. Scientists who had been studying peaceful applications of physics began designing weapons. And the humans began to build a new fleet. The Galactic Council received reports of the battle and grew concerned, not because they cared about humans dying. They had seen many young species destroyed before. What concerned them was that the humans had not followed the law of surrender. This was a violation of galactic civilization itself. Council member Thax, an ancient being from a species that had been part of the council for 8,000 years, called for an emergency session. "The humans must be taught the proper ways," Thax said. "They are young and ignorant. They do not understand that the law of surrender protects everyone. If species do not surrender when they are defeated, then wars will become total. There will be no mercy. This human behavior must be corrected." "How do you propose we correct it?" asked another council member. "We will send a diplomatic mission. We will explain the law. We will make them understand that their defiance only leads to more death. They are a logical species, according to our observers. They will see reason." The council agreed. They sent their finest diplomat, a being named Salrath who had negotiated peace between 100 warring species. Salrath traveled to Earth, the human homeworld, confident that this would be a simple matter. Salrath was wrong. The human leaders received Salrath politely. They listened to the explanation of the law of surrender. They nodded and asked thoughtful questions, and then they said something that Salrath had never heard before. "We appreciate you explaining your customs," said the human president, a woman named Maria Santos. "But we will not be following them. When the Korath attacked our worlds, they killed millions of our people, children, families. We will not surrender to those who murder our children. We will fight them until they are destroyed or until we are destroyed. There is no middle ground." "But the law," Salrath said, "the law has prevented the extinction of countless species. Without it, wars become genocides." "The Korath committed genocide when they attacked our colonies," President Santos replied. "They killed civilians. They destroyed cities. They showed no mercy. Why should we show them mercy in return?" "Because that is what civilization means. We rise above our anger. We create rules that prevent the worst outcomes." President Santos leaned forward. "Let me ask you something, Ambassador. In your law of surrender, what happens to the species that submits?" "They become subjects of the victors. Their resources are taken. Their independence ends, but they survive. As slaves. As protected populations. Slaves, Santos repeated. They lose their freedom, they lose their worlds, they lose everything except their lives, and you call this a good outcome. It is better than death. Santos shook her head. We disagree. We believe that some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of them, our homes are another. You may think this is foolish. You may think this is primitive, but it is who we are. We would rather die standing than live kneeling. Salrath returned to the council with troubling news. The humans would not surrender. Not now, not ever. They had a phrase for their attitude. Give me liberty or give me death. It was an old saying from their history, and it seemed to represent their entire species. The council debated what to do. Some argued that humanity should be destroyed completely before they could infect other species with their dangerous ideas. Others argued that the humans would eventually learn, that their stubbornness would fade after they lost a few more battles. But while the council debated, humanity was not waiting. They were building, they were planning, and they were coming for the Korath. The Korath did not understand what was about to happen. They had won the battle. They had destroyed the human fleet. According to all the rules they knew, the war should be over. The humans should have surrendered by now. Instead, the humans were building more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. The Korath fleet commander, who had replaced the one killed at Epsilon 7, sent a message to the human government. We have defeated your fleet. We have taken 3 of your worlds. We offer you the mercy of surrender. Submit, and no more of your people will die. The response came not from the government, but from a human general named James Morrison. It was a single sentence that would become famous throughout the galaxy. We have not yet begun to fight. General Morrison had spent his entire adult life studying war. He had read the histories of human conflict, from the ancient battles fought with swords and spears to the modern wars fought with starships and plasma weapons. He knew that humans had always found ways to fight against stronger enemies. They used terrain. They used surprise. They used the one advantage that could not be measured in numbers, the will to keep fighting when all logic said to stop. The Korath had more ships. They had better technology. They had thousands of years of experience in galactic warfare. But they had one critical weakness that Morrison had identified. They expected their enemies to follow the rules. The Korath fight by patterns, Morrison explained to his staff. When they encounter an enemy, they follow a specific process. They engage at long range. They wear down the enemy's shields. They offer surrender when the mathematical outcome is clear. And when the enemy surrenders, they stop fighting. Their entire military doctrine is based on opponents who follow the law of surrender. So what happens when we don't surrender? Asked Colonel Torres. They don't know. They have no protocols for an enemy who refuses to quit. Their commanders are trained to win decisive battles, not to fight grinding wars of attrition. We're going to use that against them. Morrison's plan was simple in concept but brutal in execution. The humans would not try to fight the Korath fleet directly. Instead, they would fight a different kind of war. They would hit supply lines. They would attack isolated ships. They would make the Korath pay for every system they tried to hold. And they would never, ever stop. The first strike came at Korath Station 17, a supply depot far behind the front lines. A human strike force of 12 ships dropped out of hyperspace, destroyed the station's defenses, and launched boarding parties. The humans fought through the station deck by deck, killing every Korath they found. They took the supplies they could carry and destroyed everything else. Then they disappeared before the Korath fleet could respond. The second strike came a week later. 3 Korath transport ships, carrying troops to reinforce the occupation of the captured human worlds, were ambushed in hyperspace. The humans had figured out how to detect ships traveling faster than light, something the Korath thought was impossible. All 3 transports were destroyed. The third strike was the boldest. A human special forces team landed on Hope's Landing, one of the captured human worlds. They had been smuggled in by refugees who had escaped the initial attack. The team spent 3 days gathering intelligence and contacting the human survivors who had gone into hiding. Then they attacked the Korath command center. The attack killed 200 Korath soldiers and destroyed their communication equipment. More importantly, it showed the surviving humans on the occupied worlds that they had not been forgotten. The resistance began that night. On Hope's landing on New Shanghai on Paradise, humans who had hidden in basements and tunnels came out to fight. They had no military training. They had improvised weapons, but they had something the Korath did not expect. They refused to accept their defeat. The Korath commander sent increasingly frustrated reports to his government. The humans do not behave rationally. We have occupied their worlds. We have destroyed their military, yet they continue to fight. Civilians attack our soldiers. Children throw rocks at our vehicles. Old people hide weapons in their homes. We kill 10 of them and 100 more appear. This is not how conquered species behave. The Korath government was equally confused. They had conquered many species before. All of them had accepted their defeat. All of them had submitted once the outcome was clear. The humans were different and the Korath did not know how to handle it. They decided to make an example. They would show the humans the cost of resistance. The Korath chose the city of New Hope on Paradise. It was a small city, only 200,000 people. The Korath announced that unless all resistance stopped immediately, they would destroy the city completely. They gave the humans 1 day to comply. The resistance did not stop. In fact, it increased. The night before the deadline, human fighters attacked Korath positions across the planet. They knew what was coming. They chose to fight anyway. The Korath destroyed New Hope. 200,000 people died in minutes. They expected this would break the human spirit. They expected the remaining humans would see the futility of resistance and finally surrender. Instead, the opposite happened. General Morrison received the news of New Hope's destruction in his command center. He was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at his staff. They think this will make us surrender. They think we will see the cost and decide it's too high. His voice was quiet but steady. They don't understand us at all. Every person who died in New Hope has a family, friends, people who loved them. The Korath have just created 1 million new reasons for us to fight. Morrison turned to his communications officer. Send this message to all human forces. The Korath have murdered 200,000 civilians. Our response will not be surrender. Our response will be total war. We will not stop until every Korath ship in human space is destroyed. We will not stop until our people are free. We will not stop until the Korath learn that there is no price too high for freedom. The message spread through human space like fire. People who had been uncertain about the war were now committed. People who had counseled negotiation were now calling for revenge. The destruction of New Hope had not broken humanity. It had unified them. And it had made them angry. The Galactic Council watched these events with growing alarm. The situation was spiraling out of control. The humans were not behaving like any species the Council had dealt with before. They did not respond to defeat with submission. They did not respond to terror with surrender. They responded to everything with more fighting. Council member Thax called another emergency session. This is exactly what I warned about, Thax said. The humans have rejected the law of surrender. Now we see the result. A war without end. Atrocities on both sides. This is why the law exists. This is why it must be followed. What do you suggest we do? Asked another member. We must intervene. We must force both sides to accept the law. The Korath must agree to stop the atrocities. The humans must agree to surrender. And if the humans refuse? Thax was silent for a moment. Then we may need to consider more extreme measures. The law of surrender is the foundation of galactic civilization. If one species is allowed to reject it, others may follow. We cannot allow that to happen. The Council agreed to send a fleet to human space. It would be a peacekeeping force, they said. It would separate the combatants and enforce a ceasefire. The humans would be made to understand that resistance was futile, not just against the Korath, but against the entire galaxy. When General Morrison received word of the Council's decision, he laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "So now the whole galaxy wants us to surrender," he said. "The Korath alone weren't enough. Now we have to fight everyone." "General," said Colonel Torres, "our intelligence estimates put the Council's fleet at over 5,000 ships. We have less than 100. The mathematics." "The mathematics say we should have surrendered months ago," Morrison interrupted. "The mathematics said we should have surrendered after Epsilon 7. The mathematics keep telling us to give up. When has that ever stopped us?" "Sir, with respect, we cannot fight the entire galaxy." Morrison looked at Torres. "No, we probably can't. But we can make fighting us more trouble than it's worth. We can show them that humans are not worth conquering. And maybe, just maybe, we can make them think twice about trying to force their laws on free people." He turned to his staff. "New orders. All combat units will begin preparing for asymmetric warfare operations. We're going to make human space the most expensive piece of real estate in the galaxy." Ambassador Salrath returned to Earth with the Council's ultimatum. The humans would accept a ceasefire and begin surrender negotiations, or the Council fleet would assist the Korath in subduing them. The Council did not want war, Salrath explained. They wanted peace, but peace required that everyone follow the rules. President Santos received the ultimatum with a calm expression that did not match the fire in her eyes. "Let me make sure I understand," she said. "The Korath attacked us without warning. They killed millions of our people. They destroyed 3 of our worlds. They murdered an entire city of civilians. And the Council's response is to tell us to surrender to them." "The Council understands your anger," Salrath said. "But the law of surrender exists for good reasons. If you had surrendered after your first defeat, millions of your people would still be alive. The destruction you have suffered is a consequence of your refusal to follow civilized norms. So it's our fault that the Korath killed our people." "In a sense, yes. If you had accepted the outcome of the battle, the killing would have stopped." Santos stood up. She walked to a window and looked out at the city below. Earth was the heart of human civilization, the first world they had ever known. 20 billion people lived on this planet alone. "Ambassador, I want to tell you a story," she said. "A long time ago on this world, there was a nation called the United States. In its early days, it fought a war against a much more powerful enemy. The enemy had more soldiers, more ships, more resources. By every rational calculation, the Americans should have lost. What happened? They won not because they were stronger, they won because they refused to accept defeat. They kept fighting through winters that froze their soldiers to death. They kept fighting when their capital was burned. They kept fighting when everything said they should surrender." Santos turned to face Salrath. "Do you know what their flag said? Don't tread on me. It was a warning, a promise. Step on us and we will bite." "This is a compelling story," Salrath said carefully. "But stories do not win wars against vastly superior forces." "No, they don't. Will wins wars, determination wins wars. The willingness to pay a higher price than your enemy is willing to pay wins wars." Santos sat back down. "Here is my answer to the Council. We will not surrender, not to the Korath, not to you, not to anyone. You may defeat us. You may destroy us, but you will not rule us. We will fight until we win or until the last human draws their last breath. There is no other option." Salrath stared at the human president. In all Salrath's years of diplomacy, no species had ever refused a Council ultimatum. It simply wasn't done. The Council's power was too great, its authority too absolute. "Do you understand what you are saying?" Salrath asked. "You are declaring war against the most powerful organization in the galaxy. You cannot win." "Maybe not. But we can make losing so expensive that no one will want to pay the price. We can make humanity a poison that kills anyone who tries to swallow it. We can make sure that even if we fall, we will not be forgotten. Salrath left Earth with a heavy heart. The humans were going to be destroyed. It was inevitable. But Salrath had the uncomfortable feeling that their destruction would cost the galaxy more than anyone expected. The Council fleet arrived in human space 3 weeks later. 5,000 ships, representing 20 different species, all united to enforce the law of surrender. Against them, the humans had managed to assemble a fleet of 112 ships. The Council commander, an old Vraxian admiral named Corinth, surveyed the human fleet and felt something like sadness. They were brave, these humans. Foolish, but brave. They were about to die for nothing. "Human vessels," Corinth broadcast. "This is your final warning. Lower your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your leaders will be taken into custody. Your military will be disbanded. Your species will become a protected population under Council authority. Comply, and no one needs to die today." The human response came from a ship called the Last Stand. Its captain was a woman named Sarah Chen, daughter of Admiral Chen Wei, who had died at Epsilon 7. "Council fleet, this is Captain Chen of the Last Stand. We have received your demands. Our answer is no. We will not lower our weapons. We will not be boarded. We will not become your slaves. If you want our surrender, you will have to kill every single one of us. And I promise you, we will make you pay for every life you take." "This is suicide," Corinth said. "You cannot win. You cannot even damage us significantly. You are throwing away your lives for nothing." "For nothing?" Captain Chen's voice was sharp. "We're fighting for our freedom. We're fighting for our children. We're fighting for the right to live on our own terms instead of yours. If that's nothing, then nothing is worth dying for." Corinth gave the order to attack. The Council fleet moved forward, their weapons charging. The human fleet held its position. And then something unexpected happened. Behind the Council fleet, alarms began to sound. Ships were emerging from hyperspace. Not human ships, something else. "Admiral," shouted Corinth's second officer, "we have contacts, hundreds of contacts." The ships that appeared were not from any species Corinth recognized. They were strange, angular vessels, their hulls covered in symbols that hurt to look at. They broadcast on all frequencies in a language that no one understood. And then they began to attack the Council fleet. The Council ships were caught completely off guard. They had been focused on the humans, their weapons oriented in the wrong direction. The strange fleet tore into them, their weapons cutting through shields like they weren't there. Captain Chen watched the chaos with wide eyes. "What the hell is happening?" she whispered. The strange ships did not respond to any attempt at communication. They simply fought, destroying Council ships with mechanical precision. In the confusion, the human fleet pulled back, unsure whether these newcomers were friends or just a different kind of enemy. The Battle of Earth, as it would later be called, lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Council fleet had been reduced to less than half its original size. The strange ships had lost none. They had stopped attacking only when the remaining Council vessels retreated. Then the strange ships formed a wall between the Council remnants and Earth. They broadcast a single message, this time in every language the galaxy knew. "These beings do not surrender. They fight with their whole spirit. They are under our protection now. Leave them alone or face us." And then, as quickly as they had appeared, the strange ships vanished. No one knew where they had come from. No one knew why they had protected humanity. But the message was clear. The humans were not alone. Someone or something had decided that a species that refused to surrender was worth protecting. The Council was in chaos. The attack by the unknown fleet had shattered their confidence. They had believed themselves the supreme power in the galaxy. Now they had encountered something stronger, something that had chosen to side with the very species that rejected their laws. "Who are they?" demanded Council Member Thax. "Where did they come from? How did they destroy our ships so easily?" No one had answers. The strange ships had appeared from nowhere and returned to nowhere. Their technology was beyond anything the Council had ever seen. Their weapons had bypassed shields that should have been impenetrable. And they had protected the humans. This last fact was what troubled the Council most. The humans had refused to follow the law of surrender. By all rights, they should have been punished for their defiance. Instead, they had been rewarded with protection from a power greater than the Council itself. The Korath were equally disturbed. They had started this war expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had lost half their fleet. The war had spread to include the entire Council, and now mysterious aliens were protecting their enemies. The Korath government quietly sent a message to the human leadership. They were willing to discuss peace terms. General Morrison read the message with grim satisfaction. "They want to negotiate," he said to his staff. "The species that burned New Hope wants to talk peace." "What do you want to do, General?" asked Colonel Torres. Morrison thought about it for a long time. He thought about the people who had died. He thought about the cities that had been destroyed. He thought about Admiral Chen Wei and the 200,000 civilians of New Hope and all the others who had given their lives rather than surrender. "We accept," he said finally, "but not because we forgive them. We accept because this war has cost too many lives already. We accept because we've proven our point. We accept because our people have earned their freedom with blood, and now we need to start building instead of destroying." The peace talks took place on a neutral station near the edge of human space. The Korath came expecting to negotiate from strength. They left having agreed to withdraw from all human space, pay substantial reparations, and formally recognize human independence. It was not a perfect peace. The dead would not return. The destroyed cities would not rebuild themselves. The scars of the war would remain for generations. But humanity was free. President Santos addressed her people after the peace agreement was signed. "We have won," she said. "Not because we were stronger, not because we were smarter. We won because we refused to give up. We won because we chose to fight for what matters instead of surrendering to what was easy. The galaxy told us to kneel, and we stood. The galaxy told us to submit, and we fought. The galaxy told us the law required our surrender, and we showed them that no law can break the human spirit." She paused, her eyes bright. "Let this be a lesson that the universe will not forget. Do not threaten humanity. Do not attack our homes. Do not harm our children, because we will not surrender. We will not give up. We will fight with everything we have against any odds for as long as we draw breath. The universe has rules about surrender. Humans have different opinions about giving up, and today our opinion won." Across human space, people cheered. On Earth, on the colonies, on ships patrolling the borders, humans celebrated their victory. They had faced the might of an empire and a galactic council, and they had survived. But the celebration was tempered by questions. Who were the strange beings who had protected them? Why had they intervened? Would they return? The answers came 3 months later, when a single ship from the mysterious fleet appeared in orbit around Earth. It broadcast a simple message requesting a meeting with human leaders. President Santos agreed. She met the visitors in a secure conference room, accompanied by General Morrison and a small security team. The beings who emerged from the strange ship were tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer between colors. Their eyes were large and dark, and their movements were fluid like water. "We are the remnant," their leader said. "We are what remains of a species that existed before the Council, before the law of surrender, before this galaxy took its current form." "Why did you help us?" Santos asked. "Because we remember what we lost. 10,000 years ago, we were like you. We were young and fierce, and we would not surrender. The powers of that time decided we were too dangerous to exist. They tried to destroy us completely. They nearly succeeded." The remnant leader's voice grew soft. We have watched the galaxy for millennia waiting for a species like ourselves, a species that would not break. The law of surrender is not just a rule. It is a tool. It keeps species docile. It ensures that no one can ever challenge the established order. Any species that might have the strength to change things is broken early, taught to submit. Until now, Morrison said. Until now. You humans have done something no one has done in 10,000 years. You have refused to be broken. You have shown that the law of surrender is not absolute. And now, everything will change. Change how? The remnant leader smiled. It was a strange expression on their alien face. There are other species like you, species that have been conquered, that have submitted, but who have never truly accepted their defeat. They have been waiting just like we have, waiting for proof that resistance is possible. You have given them that proof. The fires you have lit will not be easily extinguished. Santos considered this, so we've started a revolution. You have shown that revolution is possible. What happens next depends on many things, but I can tell you this, the universe will never be the same. The law of surrender has been broken, and once broken, it cannot be mended. The remnant left soon after, disappearing into the void as mysteriously as they had arrived. But their words remained with the human leaders. They had not just won a war, they had changed the course of galactic history. In the years that followed, the remnant's predictions proved true. Species that had been conquered generations ago began to rebel. The Council found itself fighting fires on 100 fronts. The Korath, weakened by their failed conquest, faced rebellion from their own subject populations. Humanity watched these events from a position of growing strength. They rebuilt their colonies. They expanded their fleet. They made alliances with the remnant and with the newly rebellious species. They became a beacon of hope for those who had been told that surrender was their only option. And they never forgot the lesson they had learned in blood and fire. Centuries later, human historians would look back on the Korath War as the moment everything changed. The moment when one small species stood against the might of a galaxy and refused to break. The moment when the universe learned that humans had different opinions about giving up. The story spread to every corner of the galaxy. It was told by slaves dreaming of freedom and by rulers fearful of rebellion. It was taught to children as a warning or as an inspiration, depending on who was doing the teaching. And the message was always the same. The universe has rules about surrender. The universe says that when you are defeated, you should submit. The universe says that the strong have the right to rule the weak. But humans have different opinions about giving up. And sometimes, different opinions change everything. The final chapter of the story was written by Captain Sarah Chen, who had commanded the last stand during the Battle of Earth. She retired from military service 20 years after the war and wrote a book about her experiences. The book ended with these words. My father died at Epsilon 7. He died fighting against impossible odds, refusing to surrender even when every calculation said he should. For a long time, I thought his death was a waste, a brave but pointless gesture against an enemy that would win anyway. I was wrong. His death was not the end of a story. It was the beginning. His refusal to surrender inspired a fleet. That fleet's refusal inspired a planet. That planet's refusal inspired a species. And that species' refusal changed the galaxy. We did not win because we were strong. We won because we believed that some things matter more than survival. Freedom matters. Dignity matters. The right to live on your own terms matters. The galaxy told us these things were not worth dying for. We showed them they were worth more than that. They were worth fighting for, even when we couldn't win. That is the human way. We do not surrender. We do not give up. We fight for what matters against any odds until the end. And that makes all the difference. The book became required reading in military academies across human space. It was translated into 100 languages and spread to 1,000 worlds. It became a symbol of the human spirit that had changed everything. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the remnant watched and smiled. They had waited 10,000 years for a species like humanity. The wait had been worth it. The universe has rules about surrender. Humans have different opinions about giving up. And those different opinions had changed the universe forever.